It was the matriarch who invented that story of gathering everyone at the old house on the hill. Donna Josephine swore her heart was failing her, but everyone knew it was just longing disguised as illness. I confess I didn't have much to do in the city, so I accepted the invitation. But what I hadn't expected was him. The winding road greeted me with a scent of wild lavender and dry dust. The ancient iron gate was ajar, and the sound of the chapel bells in the distant valley seemed to announce something or someone. Upon arriving, I was greeted by a light breeze and by the image of him. He was on the porch, lying on a dark wooden lounge chair. A white linen shirt clung to his sweat-damp chest, and his closed eyes revealed long lashes that contrasted with his sun-tanned copper skin. The muscles in his arms moved gently, as if even rest was a strain on his body. I sighed, feeling my stomach react involuntarily. "But look, if it isn't Miss Odette," Aunt Eugenia said as she opened the door to the main house. "You're early." Surprise! I forced a smile, trying to appear casual. I ignored his presence, but I felt every step toward my room being watched. And indeed, I was. As I passed the porch, he slowly opened his eyes, as if recognizing me from another life. A sudden heat crept up my thighs and into my stomach. That was Samuel, the house slave raised by my grandmother since he was a boy, the son of a slave who had already passed away. Now he was a man, strong-featured, silent, but with a presence that split the air, always with a restrained expression, but his eyes said it all. He knew what he did to those who stared too much. I spent the afternoon helping my aunt in the kitchen. The mansion smelled of freshly baked bread, old wood, and nostalgia, but he distracted me. The sound of his footsteps, the soft scuff of his boots on the floor, his voice deep, firm, and always restrained. When he spoke, it was as if a secret order was being issued into the room. "Where are you going to sleep, Odette?" my cousin Cécile asked as she enjoyed a pear tart. "I think in the little room behind the barn," I replied. Cécile's eyes widened. "The same as Samuel." I swallowed hard. "There are 2 beds, aren't there?" "Yes, but they're very close together," he said, laughing mischievously. I smiled sheepishly, and inside, I felt my insides turn. Night fell with a scent of jasmine and wet firewood. Dinner was typical: root soup, meat in a dark sauce, and red wine. I avoided looking at him, but when I did, he was already looking at me. It wasn't a vulgar look, it was hunger, contained desire, as if our skins knew each other better than they should. When everyone had retired, I went to my room. The lamp hanging from the ceiling created sensual shadows on the walls. The golden light bathed the yellowed sheets. 2 beds, side by side, with a small space between them. I took off my shoes and went to the bathroom. When I returned, he was already there. Shirtless, wearing only loose linen pants, his back broad and muscles tense from the day's work. He passed me in the hallway. The smell of ash soap, mixed with body heat, invaded my nose like a forbidden spell. I lay down facing the wall. I tried to pray, but my body was heretical. "Are you cold?" His voice sounded like distant thunder. "Why?" I asked, without turning around. "Because you're all curled up." I laughed nervously. "It's the way I sleep." Silence. But the silence didn't sleep. It exploded into the room, as if each passing second filled the room with something invisible, dense, and deliciously wrong. I closed my eyes. I tried to ignore his breathing. It was slow, deep, almost a call. I felt his heat even 2 steps away. The flower between my legs pulsed, as if begging for sin. "It's only a week," I thought. But my body laughed at me. The next morning, the bed next to mine was unmade, still warm. The pillow sagged. He'd evaporated with the dawn. I got up groggily, pulled on an old blouse, and went to the kitchen. The hammock on the porch was still swaying. There he was, shirtless, sitting, the sun drawing muscles on his broad back. Beads of sweat slowly ran down, as if time desired it too. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, without turning around. So... My voice trailed off. "Did the fan bother you?" What bothered me was the silence. He laughed, a muffled laugh that vibrated inside me more than any touch. I hid in the kitchen, feigning normalcy. But inside, something had awakened, and I wouldn't go back to sleep. "Odette, are you going to help Samuel clean the barn?" my cousin asked, distracted by a piece of bread. "Barn?" I pretended not to understand. "You two are just hanging around. Grandma sent you." Destinies are sometimes sown by mocking hands. 10 minutes later, there we were, he with his pants rolled up to his knees, his sweaty shirt tied around his waist, me in a light dress clinging to the heat. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a butter knife. While we were packing, our hands met over a box of old photos. He pulled away quickly, so did I, but I felt his breath on my neck. I shivered. The flower inside me was rejoicing. "Is this your box?" he asked, a photograph between his fingers. The photo was old. I was in his lap, still a child. We laughed at the memory, but when we looked at each other, the laughter died. The atmosphere changed. His eyes grew dark, intense. Time stood still. "It's hot, isn't it?" he said, trying to escape the moment. "Or are you getting hot?" he murmured, almost in a whisper. I turned my back. I pretended not to hear, but I was trembling. The day passed like that. He came closer. He leaned too close. He nudged me lightly. When he lifted the hem of his pants to wipe his face, I saw his hard stomach and nearly lost consciousness. I fled to the kitchen, took a deep breath in front of the sink. The refrigerator mirror betrayed me. Red face, glassy eyes, a living flower, and then he appeared in the doorway. "Are you running away from me?" "I'm running away from myself," I replied, not daring to laugh. He moved closer, slowly, warm, wild. Just inches away, he touched my face. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "This shouldn't be happening," I whispered. But it already was. And inside me, everything begged for it to continue. "So, my dear, curious soul, did you feel that heat? Well, I'll tell you something. This was just the beginning. If your heart also beat faster, like it, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell, because the next chapter is going to be hot, if you know what I mean." "Okay," he replied firmly, his eyes blazing. My chest rose and fell as if I'd run an entire field. The hairs on my arms stood on end, my legs felt like jelly. Everything inside me begged for escape, except my soul. That, curiously, seemed already surrendered. We stood there, eye to eye, in a silent duel between reason and desire. And when he leaned toward my neck not to kiss, but simply to smell me, I shivered inside. My skin burned from the inside out, but he pulled back, a gesture of honor that only increased my hunger. "I need a shower," he murmured. And he left, leaving me alone in the middle of the kitchen, my body vibrating and my heart in ruins. I returned to the bedroom as if carrying a fire in my bones. I took off my sweaty blouse, tied my hair back, and sat facing the fan, trying to convince my skin to forget what my eyes had begged. But the heat came from within, where the desire lived. And then he walked in. He wore only a cotton towel, loosely tied around his waist. His hair was still dripping, and the last drops of water trickled down his bare chest, looking as sinful as I felt. "I thought you were alone," he said hoarsely, running his fingers through his damp hair. "Have you forgotten I live here now?" I tried to sound ironic, but my voice faltered, escaping like a sigh. He smiled, and his smile was a provocation the world didn't need. He went to the clothes chest, grabbed the shirt, and put it on right there, beside me. The towel fell as if fate were conspiring. I had to hold my breath to keep from groaning. I saw it all, even without meaning to, and when he looked over his shoulder, he blurted out, "I've seen you in diapers." "Yeah, but now I wear lace." I countered, impulsive, senseless. Silence. A silence that tasted like a challenge. "What color?" I smirked. "The color of your wits. In other words, none." He laughed, but he really laughed, throwing his head back. And what a sight that was. I laughed too, half embarrassed, half excited. The tension between us was no longer a whisper, it was a muffled thunder. "Are you going to help Madame Clarisse in the kitchen?" "Only if it's to get you out of the oven," I blurted, biting my lip immediately. He stepped closer, his eyes shining like moonlight. "Then be careful not to burn yourself," he murmured in my ear. The door slammed behind him, and I was left there, alone, my legs trembling, my stomach churning, and my heart racing. The flower between my thighs pulsed as if it had a life of its own. Minutes later, I put on a simple dress, fitted at the waist, and went to the kitchen, pretending to help. There were too many people in the room, which calmed and tortured me at the same time. I washed glasses as if they were jewels, each one with more attention than the last. But he passed behind me, like a warm spirit. His arm brushed lightly, his hip brushed. It was too much of an accident to be real. The last time, he stopped behind me and murmured, "You've been washing that glass for 5 minutes." "I'm thinking about throwing it at your head," I replied, feeling my face burn. "Better not. You can cut off that little hand. It's already shaking so much." He left. I dropped the glass and went straight to the backyard, looking for fresh air, but the night wind was filled with wood and desire. The damp grass beneath my bare feet was the only point of reality amidst the torpor that overcame me. I sat in the hammock on the back porch. I crossed my legs, trying to look elegant, but inside me, chaos reigned. And then, he came. He sat on the ground beside me, without touching me. He picked up a twig and began to draw slow circles in the packed earth. The sky behind him was orange, as if even the day blushed with our presence. "Are you afraid of me, Odette?" he asked, looking ahead. "I'm afraid of myself," I confessed, stripped of my defenses. "I didn't come here to mess with your head, but you did." We were silent. "You and we're from different worlds," I tried to remind us both. "You're a former slave, Samuel. People wouldn't understand." He stood up slowly, facing the net. The sun painted his face an almost indecent gold. His eyes, dark and deep-set, plunged into mine. "So tell me, Odette," he began softly, crouching slightly, his hands on the edge of the net. "If this is wrong, why does your breath catch when I'm near?" I didn't answer. "Why does your skin tingle with a whisper?" Silence. "Why does your flower pulse when I pass by you?" My skin prickled, even my eyes. I wanted to cry, laugh, run away, kiss him, but all I could do was close my eyes and feel. "You're feeling the same way I am, aren't you?" I rested my forehead against his and confessed, I'm feeling everything, and I don't know what to do with it." He didn't say anything else. He stood there, breathing with me, letting the intensity speak for us. And it was in that silence that I understood. It wasn't just lust, it was something bigger, something that was stripping me bare inside. He walked away and entered the house without another word. He left me there, under the star-filled sky, the flower between my legs alive as ever. I spent the rest of the afternoon trying to forget. I watered plants, washed clothes that weren't mine, hung clothes on the clothesline I hadn't even used. all with my body on alert and my soul in conflict. They said he'd gone out to buy coal, but I knew it was an escape. That night, he returned. The smell of the road, fresh sweat, and a different silence. In the crowded kitchen, he walked past me as if I weren't there. My chest tightened. Pretending it didn't hurt was the hardest part of the day. I grabbed a bowl of salad and went to the porch where the air felt lighter. I sat on the stairs, trying to chew lettuce and forget the taste of his absence. And then he appeared. He sat behind me, silent. His presence was louder than any words. "Are you running away from the chaos?" he asked. "I'm running away from you." He smiled. A hoarse, indecent smile. "Why?" "Because you tear me apart." "And that scares you?" I turned slowly. His eyes were fixed on mine, and there, under the porch light and the stars as witness, I dropped the last shield. "Yes, it scares me because my body has already chosen before my head." He didn't answer. He approached slowly, one hand on the wood, the other on my face. His touch was firm, warm, unforgettable. "Odette, if I touch you now, there's no going back. I don't want to go back," I whispered. And then, the kiss. It came strong, but silent, unhurried. Without asking permission, his mouth fitted mine with the precision of someone who'd rehearsed it 1,000 times in secret. And I burned. The flower between my legs pulsed to the rhythm of the kiss. His hands explored me reverently. It was desire, yes, but it was also something sacred. We stood up. I pulled him by the hand, and there, the after had already begun. "And you? Were you able to breathe until now? Because look, even I couldn't maintain control during this reunion. Now tell me, what did you think of this chapter? Leave a comment." We entered the house through the side door without saying a word, avoiding the sleepy eyes of the servants. The night was falling asleep with a wrench, and the dark hallway seemed complicit in our sin. Each step echoed inside me like a nervous drum. I opened my bedroom door slowly, my heart racing, and waited for him to close it. When the doorknob clicked, it sounded like a sentence. He came from behind, his warm chest against my back, his hand sliding around my waist with criminal slowness. I turned, goosebumps already covering my body. Our eyes met and lingered there, breathing the same air, on the edge of madness. His hands touched my thigh, then moved up to my hip. He lifted me firmly and sat me on his lap, on the simple bed in my room. Our foreheads touched, our breaths ragged. He whispered things that my reason couldn't understand, but my body translated perfectly. The little flower pulsed as if it had a life of its own. Their lips met once more, this time without shyness, hungry, sweaty, begging for more. My white linen nightgown slid down my body like a petal falling from a flower. The headlights were free, and his eyes devoured me with reverence. "You're beautiful," he said, almost voiceless. He kissed my neck as if asking for forgiveness for something yet to come. Each touch of his mouth made my skin vibrate, as if the world stopped between one sigh and the next. His hips fit against mine, as if they had been molded for this. And there we were, in a cramped room, experiencing the most forbidden and true thing I'd ever felt. The little flower cried out for him. And he, even panting, guided me carefully with his hands, with his eyes, with his chest pounding against mine. When he lowered his kisses to my shoulder, I trembled all over. I closed my eyes. My body screamed for him. It was time. There were no more restraints. He saw it in my gaze, a silent yes, but full of fire. And he took me, unhurriedly, without fear. A slow, intense, deep fit. I leaned in, my breath held, his fingers firm on my waist. "Trust me," he said. And I trusted. My body exploded in waves, warm waves that passed through the headlights, passed through my stomach, and died in my trembling legs. The little flower released itself with a soundless sigh. I lay there, lying on his chest, the sweat from our bodies mingling, his heart hammering in my ear, and for a moment, for a single moment, the world was silent. But the world isn't made only of skin. Knocking, loud, on the door. I jumped up, pulling on my nightgown, trying to regain my breath and sanity. He hurriedly pulled on his pants. The door opened before either of us could say anything. And there was the colonel, my great-uncle, followed by 2 servants and my mother. The silence turned to a scream. "What is this?" she shouted, her hands trembling in the air. I froze. He tried to explain himself, but there was no time. 2 men grabbed Samuel by the arms and dragged him outside. "He seduced her!" my aunt cried in blind fury. "No," I screamed, running after them. "It was my will. It was out of love." No one heard me. Samuel was taken to the yard. The night was silent, the stars hidden by dark clouds. There, they tied him to a rough wooden log, as if he were an animal. 30, the colonel said coldly. 30 for every shame he brought to this house. He was naked from the waist up. His lean, strong body glistened with sweat and fear. When the first whip cracked the air, I closed my eyes. The sound of skin splitting was more painful than any scream. But he didn't scream. With each crack, my heart broke. I tried to run, but I was restrained. I cried, screamed, begged. "He's no longer a slave," I screamed. "He's free, he's mine." "Never will be," my mother replied, hard as stone. "You have shamed our blood." On the 5th lash, he closed his eyes. On the 10th, he gritted his teeth. On the 20th, he bled like a martyr. On the 30th, he passed out. He hung there, like an offering to the hypocrisy of the nobility. When they released him, he fell to his knees. And yet, his face scarred, his chest wounded, he looked at me. A look that pierced me completely. I ran to him, knelt beside him, and hugged him fearlessly, even with my hands and nightgown covered in blood. "I chose you, Samuel, and I will choose you again, always." He tried to smile, even though he was almost weak. "You're worth every wound," he whispered. The sky was brightening, and with it, the tomorrow that promised even more pain. But that morning, amidst tears, blood, and scandal, I knew there was no turning back, because once the body experiences the touch of forbidden love, the heart never again belongs to another. And if you've made it this far, tell me, where are you watching this story from? I really want to know. It was intense, wasn't it? Comment below what you thought of this ending, and if you think their love survives all of this. And of course, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to the channel now, like it, and see you in the next video with more intense, captivating stories full of skin, flowers, and desire. See you soon, my loves.